Many thanks for inviting me here. So I travel little, but I can't resist coming to Vienna, even more so as my wife is accompanying me. Okay. So I will be talking exclusively about the classical trees of set theory. So therefore, I think it's appropriate I give a classical blackboard talk. Oh, they are wet. Okay. Okay, the classical trees of set theory, these are Sachs, Silver, Lever, Miller. They showed up already in several talks. So I fixed my notation, somewhat different from other people. So Sachs forcing, Silver forcing, Lever forcing, Miller forcing. So let me recall. So Sachs trees are simply perfect subtrees of full binary tree. So ordered by inclusion. Stronger condition has more information about the Sachs real. Silver conditions can be presented equivalently in two ways, either silver function or silver trees. So a silver function is simply partial function f from omega to 2, such that the codomain, which is simply complement of the domain, infinite. Well, here the order is, well, the stronger condition is a superset, gives more information about the silver real. Each such silver function defines uniquely a silver tree, which is simply the set of all binary sequences not contradicting the F. So such F gives silver tree PF. Okay. So how it looks like, well, we start that the stem is simply F as long as it is defined. We wait till we find the first n not in the domain. It exists, right? So there it's not decided which way we go, huh? So we split. And there we continue with the F on both sides as long as we can till the next n not in the domain, and so on. So it's a very special perfect tree. Okay, and here of course the order, the stronger silver tree is a subtree. Sum of the split levels. Okay, what is completely different to this? Well, see, so the codomain, if you go to some sigma in this tree, to some split node sigma, and look at P sigma, so if this is PF, well, so PF above sigma is simply the tree up here, subtree up here, then up to finite modification, it has the same set of split levels, right? So going to, okay, which is completely false here, right? Yeah. Split levels, if you go to different places, sigma, tau, they're independent. Okay, so Lever trees, these are subtrees of omega to the less omega. We know, huh? So Lever trees, you have one stem, and then we split all the time. Whereas Miller trees, Oswaldus use them, so we allow to, well, densely we have infinite splittings, but we allow to not to split for a while. And again, here is order is inclusion. Huh? So, okay. These are very well studied. Huh? So these are axiom A forcings. One knows very well the models obtained by these classical models. Well, as they are axiom A forcings, they come with a nice fusion property, huh? Each of them. Okay, I'm not interested in the trees themselves, but in the ideals associated with them. So each of them defines well, so three ideals. For each of these p's, denoted by this I of p, for p, one of these. Huh? So, and I write, well, R for either in the first two cases Cantor space, the second two cases Baire space. So it's an ideal on the reals. Okay, let me just define the Sachs ideal. Well, Sachs ideal has other notations, either the S0 ideal or the Marchevsky. I will write Marchevsky ideal, MA. So how is it defined? It is subsets, in this case of Cantor space, such that for each P in the Sachs, you have a subtree such that branches of Q are disjoint to X. So there's a kind of measurability notion in the background, not real measure, but something like. Huh? So you can, a weaker property would be more general to define set X to be Sachs measurable if for each P you find a Q such either this or branches of Q are completely inside. Huh? These are the measurable, and these are then the, so to say, null sets. Huh? And similarly for the other three. Huh? So, as these are all axiom A forcings, these are all sigma ideals. Using fusion technique, very easily proof sigma ideals. All of them. But they are very far from Borel ideals. Huh? So the Borel parts of these ideals are negligible. We will see that cofinality of these ideals is larger than continuum. So, well, in these three cases, not silver are very well understood. Here not. And the Sabletal's characterization of this Borel part. But I mean, not understood in the case with respect to the coefficients, huh? Additivity and so on. Huh? I don't know what they are. Okay, so no Borel base, not CCC. Each of these trees splits into continuum many subtrees such that no two have a common branch. It's good to know that we have, well, bases coming from maximal antichains. Well, these ideas have a lot to do with forcing, so forcing ideas. So, given any, say, B subset, now P for the moment is any of these subset, then you can define X of P of B be the set, the complement of all the sets of parentheses P in B. So if B is either dense or pre-dense or maximal antichain, then these sets are in the ideal. And actually, for each of the choice here, they build a base. Huh? So they cover, each set in the ideal is covered by a set of this shape. That's why it helps to understand maximal antichains of these forces, as I will illustrate in a minute. Yeah, I should have said we allow that the f is finite. Huh? Silver functions may be finite. And then finite silver function corresponds to a somewhere dense silver tree. Okay. Okay, I want to talk about cardinal coefficients of such ideals. Huh? So I restrict to additivity and cofinality. So we know these, right? It's just the unboundedness, is part of this inclusion, how many sets you need such that mean is no more in the ideal. This is the cofinality as a partial order. Okay. So I already said these are all sigma ideals, so these are cardinal. I already said cofinalities are bigger than continuum. And not only that, as this is a partial order, not a strict order, so it needn't be regular. Cofinality needn't be regular. It's known. Right? So it's known that for all these four, cofinality of the cofinality is strictly above the continuum. Of course, below 2 to the 2 to the RS. Okay. So I want to tell you what is known about these coefficients. They have been studied very early certainly in the 80s. So the structure of my talk is first I look at additivities, second part cofinalities. The first part look at lower bounds for additivities and then at upper bounds. Can you distinguish, can you get different values of additivities for these four? Okay. So first additivities. So lower bounds. Okay, for Marchevsky, so I should have said, this is the Marchevsky ideal, I said this. Silver ideal is also called, which has introduced this first. Okay, for these two, it's surprising that Martin's axiom does not imply the additivity is continuum. Huh? This is, I think, historically first for silver by Stebrans. Stebrans late 80s, I think. we proved. So consistency of, we can have non-CH and small additivity of Michalski. For the two independent papers, one is a very important paper for all these ideals. This is Judah, Miller, Schellach. Okay. Is Aleph 1. Usually Martin Saxon implies all the fields are large, here not. Yeah? Okay, here the analogous thing for the Marchevsky. Independently by Boban, different model. He starts with PFA and does some forcing on top of it. Okay, so we can say no lower bounds. No other reasonable color invariants are lower bounds for these additivities of these two. For the other two, Lever-Miller, it's different. So there's in the early 80s, I think. No, 90s. Oh, so this was late 80s. So this is early 90s. This is by Martin, a guy called Mark Johnson. I don't think he's anymore active, and myself. So we showed Martin axiom implies additivity is continuum. By the way, from this you already get models where additivities for certain pairs are different, right? You go into these additivities of these are large. So different values, huh? For certain pairs.
So the proof actually shows that the Martin number is a lower bound for this.
The P number is, yeah, the Martin axiom sigma center is. Yeah. P is less. Very good. So far for lower bounds. Upper bounds are more interesting. Okay, let's start with Michalski. So here I have a result, maybe 3 years ago. I showed, so meager ideal, this is meager ideal, is a Tukey reducible to Michalski. This was certainly surprising. Huh? So we learned yesterday from James what it means. So there's a function, Tukey function on M to Michalski, preserving unbounded families, or the other way around, preserving cofinal families. So I think he didn't mention this implies something about additivity and cofinality. Huh? And whenever you have such a Tukey reduction, then hence, that's a simple exercise. Huh? Hence, additivities reverse So in CFC, CFC, additivity which is less or equal additivity meager. And also for covenality, that's anyway trivial, huh? Covenality of, we learned already of Michalski is larger than continuum and, okay, dimension. We know from Chichon's diagram additivity meager is minimum of B so this implies whenever you try to increase this additivity, which you do typically with an amoeba for silver, you have to increase these. Hence, you have to add dominating and cornreals. This was open for, well, for B, this was known before. Right? The new point here from this paper is that you have to add cornreals. So this is actually in my paper with Marek Wiszkowski. I will, in a minute, I need a result from this paper. About, we have a paper, silver antichains. There we prove the antichain number of silver is at least D in CFC. And as a side product, we get this additivities in CFC below B. Okay, I would like to, well, while I was preparing this talk, I realized actually this additivity is not only below B, but also below S in CFC. Let me give this proof. It's very simple, and it tells us a lot about how understanding of antichains helps you understanding additivities. Okay, proof of this last thing. So let kappa be less cardinal less than this additivity. We want to show it's smaller than S. Huh? Show kappa is smaller than S. Okay. So we start with a family of infinite sets, less than kappa many sets, and have to show it's not a splitting family. Huh? Let A alpha be given in our infinite subsets. Huh? Find a set, infinite set A, which is not split by any of these. Huh? Not split. Means not split by A. This means for each alpha either A is almost disjoint or A is almost contained. Huh? We learned what means splitting. Huh? Get split into two infinite halves. How we find such a set? Well, we have to apply. At some point, we want to apply this. Huh? Okay, what we do? Construct for each of these alphas maximal antichains. A of silver trees, which then will define an X of A alpha in the ideal. As follows. Two things. Well, certainly we can make sure that each tree we are putting into A alpha has a codomain not split by A alpha. Right? By strengthening silver function, we can make it very small. So, okay, no problem. For a bit of, that's a natural thing you try. All P, so codomain of P is not split by no, the other way. Yeah, it's not split by A alpha. Okay. One thing. The other thing is a thing which is always being done, which goes back to this Miller-Schellach paper, which is very helpful. So this is this thing for all P, for all silver trees. Whenever it gets covered by the branches of this antichain, it gets covered by a small portion of the antichain. It's easy to do. For all P, if branches of P get covered, the antichain, then you can find a small subset of this antichain. Small means smaller than continuum, which already does this job, such that branches, no, P, Q from only B. That's easy to do. Okay. Huh? The second part? Look at Judah Miller-Schellach. This is a very easy transfinite induction. Very easy. Enumerate all the trees, and you have two situations. Either you are covered already in an intermediate state, you're done. Otherwise, you fix one real, which you promise never to cover anymore in the rest. So you. Okay, now we get from this, get family of this X A alpha, so these are all sets in the Michalski ideal. We have few, less than additivity. So we know by assumption. We know the union kappa is in the ideal. Okay, meaning you find many silver trees whose branches are disjoint to this set. So this is X. Hence, find many. One is enough for us, such that just by definition of being in the ideal, you find trees disjoint to it. So this is not in disjoint to X, hence covered by the branches of the A alpha. Such that for all alpha, it's covered by union branches of P from A alpha. Okay, now we apply this, right? For each alpha, find a small subset. So let's write this, B alpha, where B alpha is a small subset of A alpha. Okay, now comes an observation from this paper I erased, with Marek Wyszkowski. So there we proved, well, in general, antichains, maximal antichains of silver have size at least d. But if they don't contain finite silver functions, they must be of maximal size continuum. This we apply here. Okay, but now each B alpha, B R, the trees in here induces maximal antichain below the Q. Q is as good as Cantor space. It's small. It's not smaller than continuum. So we know it must contain finite silver conditions. Talking about trees, so trees which are somewhere dense in Q. What it means? Fix an alpha. So here's our Q. So we must find P in this P alpha, which sits inside A alpha, which is somewhere dense in Q, somewhere dense. But what it means, if you just check about codomain of P, if it's somewhere dense, then this means I always have to look to make the. I can also think so. This means, hence, if the P is somewhere dense, it definitely must contain all the split levels of Q, almost all. Huh? Might have more split levels, huh? But definitely has to contain these. So, hence, I wrote codomain. Well, of FQ now, of the silver function associated with the Q. Huh? What I said, P must, no, what I said, must contain codomain of Q, right? Must contain. Almost. Here comes this thing that, okay. Now, but we prepared the P, right? So that this is not split by the A alpha. It comes from the A alpha, not split by set we started with. Huh? But this is true for each alpha. So this infinite set, well, if a set is not split, then also subset, almost subset is not split. Huh? So we find one infinite set not being split by all this, so that's the proof. Oh, time. Anyway, I'm sorry, I completely miscalculated. Huh? Okay, now for upper bounds for Marchevsky. Huh? Okay, what is known is CFC. Let's repeat. This has some history. The least trivial part has three parts. Least trivial part, a result of Better-Simon, who showed collapsing number of sacks is B. Collapsing number means smallest kappa, such that forcing with sacks introduces a cofinal function from kappa to the continuum, to the old continuum. We know Sachs doesn't collapse Aleph1, but if the continuum is bigger than Aleph1, it can collapse. It will always do if the B is small. It will collapse it down to B. Collapsing number. Huh? Then, in this paper, Judah, Miller, Schellach, they showed if continuum is regular, then additivity Michalski collapsing number. Uses again this argument with preparing the anti-chains. So, okay. So remain the case, what happens if singular continuum? It's not completely trivial, but I have a paper with my student Paul Hein. So there we did the singular case, huh? Using refinement theorem of Baltzar-Wojtas for Boolean algebras. Also. Okay. Of course, I still wonder, is there a direct proof of, right, so, right, this needs a stronger result. Nobody knows whether they actually can be different, but can you directly prove that this is with much less effort, maybe? I say something to this. The problem why this silver proof doesn't work, the reason why it doesn't work is we don't have such an anti-chain lemma for the Sachs trees. There's a result by Rozwanowski-Schellach. They build a model where you have Aleph1 sized maximal anti-chain of Sachs consisting of nova-dense trees, but continuum is large. So anti-chain number can be consistently smaller, which is not possible by silver, as I said, with the lemma. But we can still try to imitate this proof. So I have a result with, also in this paper with Paul Hein. Sachs now. So precisely this number which can be small by Rozwanowski-Schellach, I just mentioned, result, is at least D. So what is anti-chain number? This is minimal, maximum, meaning uncountable. You always have countable CFC. Now you can try to imitate the proof for silver I gave for her, right? So, and well, if D is large, then you have the same proof, almost. For B, if D is large, and you build your anti-chain such that whenever tree is covered, it's covered by a small portion. You know, small portion can't be maximum anti-chain unless it is countable, in which case it is somewhere dense in your Q. Right? So, hence, we can prove, say, if now, so if continuum, then this, then we can prove directly B, what is that here, at which is bounded by B. Why does the S argument not work under this assumption? As we have Sachs trees, above 2 sigma tau, the split sets need nothing. You don't get a single set not being split. You get a countable family, such that for each A alpha, guys, is not being split. which is precisely the definition of the S sigma, the countable version of S sigma. So this is the first result. The second is then Chelsky is sigma. S sigma is how many sets you need so that you can simultaneously split every countable sequence of sets. And it's open. Well, actually, it's open. Vector open. As we had it for silver, this is open. Huh? I don't know, huh? But every forcing which increases this, every forcing known, every amoeba force X increases the S. Huh? But why would it be interesting to have the other thing? Well, if we get, by this result, if we could well, small s, big additivity, then we know additivity is below B, so even more below D. Hence, we can apply this. Hence, we had a model for S, smaller s sigma, which would be great, but I don't know. Then we had consistency sigma. I don't know. Oh, I forgot something for the silver. Maybe it's worse. Okay. Let me finish with upper bounds Lever-Miller ideals and then shortly come back to the Milchevsky. I forgot a nice thing. Where is it? Okay, for Lever-Miller ideals, we have these two results. They are in paper on three ideals. This is Goldstern, Verbitsky, Schellach, myself. So here, among other things, are the two results. If B is C, then additivity of Lever ideal is at most H, distributivity Wolfgang has talked about. Distributivity of P omega mod finite. And if D is C, then same thing for Miller. Okay, I won't say anything about this. Let me, I think it's nice. Back to Michalski. So, I said, let me mention him again. So I proved this. Meager ideal is Tioki below. Michalski, hence, at, okay, let's formulate like this. We all know this famous result of Pawlikowski. M is Tioki below Lebec null. No? So of course, everybody should wonder, is even the null ideal below Michalski or not? Answer is no. And you can, of course, you can refute it by question is even n q below Michalski. Answer is no. Even the covering, so no random reals, is smaller than additivity of Michalski. So this was hard work. This is in the actual work JML paper. Huh? Probably next issue, I don't know. So let me say something about this. As I work here only with sex and with a special silver amoeba, which has so amoeba, so increasing additivity. It must add cone reals, so you can't find any with label property. Huh? So it needs to find new ideas how to avoid random reals. Well, it has pure decision. I only work with this in the whole paper, but implicit in this paper, if you understand the proofs, you can, it's much more general theorem. So an iteration theorem for not adding random reals. I think it's worthwhile to explain this in the remaining time. So quite simple observation, giving necessary and not necessary, sufficient to avoid random reals. So what we need, so how is it? General iteration for no random reals, not adding random reals. We need three things. Oh, I described the single-step forcing. Huh? If you do this and you iterate with countable supports, you won't have random reals. So first thing, which Q should have, basic fusion property, yeah? Like axiom A, basic fusion. Second thing is pure decision property. Whatever it means, huh? Nobody axiomatized this notion so far, maybe it would be worthwhile, but so in concrete situations, often it applies to, not always, but often applies to tree forcing, also the amoeba forcings. Whenever you have conditions consisting of a finite part and an infinite part, pure decision property says you can, given a finite disjunction, which is forced by the condition, you can strengthen the condition, not increasing the finite part, just shrinking the infinite part. You can decide that, okay, pure decision property. And the third thing is a peculiar anti-chain structure, which I want to describe here. This is much more common. Yeah, so every tree, every amoeba forcing has it. So meaning, each condition in the Q exists of a countable family of countable anti-chains. Let's say R, K. So countable anti-chain. RK plus 1 times RK. That's all. If you have these three things, you won't add. Labor. Labor has this property given any labor tree. What is RK? Here you have the stem sigma. RK is simply go to a level length sigma plus k, take any sigma and take here all the trees, simply all the, what if this is p sigma in p and length sigma is length, not sigma, tau. Tau is length of the stem plus k. These, right? Full p trees above tau. Certainly, these are maximum anti-chains, they refine, countable, and so on. Okay, now if everybody knows labor has precision. So now if comes a condition, let me prove that labor doesn't add random real with these three properties. So given any real, with a fusion find pure extension, so Q inside there. Okay, also add to each sigma here, to each tau here, add an n tau, natural number. It will be then chosen very fast, but at the beginning, just a natural number attached to each tau. Okay, find by fusion and pure decision, proved by labor. Find this and, okay, such that for each tau in the Q above the stem, we have that Q tau besides x up to n tau, pre-given, as a xc tau. Pure decision, right? Fusion. Right? But now let UK be just the union of all this union of open sets determined by the x tau, tau from Rk inside, well, with respect to Q. This is an open set. And certainly now the Q, the fusion forces, X is inside intersection of the UK, as these are all refining antichains. Okay, now if you choose very fast the n tau, this will be a G delta null set. And now the main point, which is really hard work, is to show that this antichain property is so. Okay, I have to stop.